to be able to provide the platform that they need to integrate their biotechnology with the nanotechnology. We also partner with other universities in the state of Florida to develop the Center of Excellence in the area of nanotechnology and biotechnology. Another area of great interest to us and to our researchers is development of novel polymer heart valve, and as you would imagine, the level of compatibility between the materials and artificial cardiovascular implants that we have, it would depend essentially on the type of materials and development that we will do. And this novel polymer heart valve, which was developed here at FIU with the collaboration with Innovio, has been implanted in a sheep, and I'm sure that some of us would be next that would come after this. The area of bioinformatics is another area that our computer science folks in the bioinformatic research group have developed, and they work with a number of researchers across the country, from Harvard to folks here in town, to work on a series of bioinformatics related issues, from genomics to gene chip data analysis to the protein structure analysis and cancer meta-analysis, and essentially provide the backbone and the necessary support structure that is needed for bioinformatics. And I think I do not have to emphasize the importance of the exchanging medical records. I think our keynote speaker, Noel, today eloquently provided a compelling argument that how important it is for us to be able to have a medical record that would be easily accessible by all parties that are involved in delivering and providing the health care. And I think that that has been discussed quite eloquently by Noel and others. And I think what we do here at FIU is basically developing one system for that, which is exchanging medical records. And again, this is in collaboration with Miami Children's Hospital to essentially come up with what we call it the virtual medical record, and a communication virtual machine that is going to provide the level of detail and the level of information that is needed to have the record of the patient both available to the physician and to those that are providing the health care to the patient. And with that, I would conclude that's essentially what we do here at Engineering and Computing, and this is where we are. Thank you.
Okay, we are a little early. We do have some time for questions. Does anybody have questions? Okay.
All express a lot of great projects that you have going on. A lot of the different great projects that you have going on. If you had one wish, what would it be that would actually transcend the science that you're doing?
I'll take a shot. There are a couple of holes in our empire. One is that traditionally in universities, people have stayed within their silo. And one of the reasons that it's very important to change that situation is so that we can work together to advance technologies. So as an example, if somebody comes up with a medical device, unless you're dealing with an engineer that knows how to prototype that device, you can't move it very far. So as a result of that, if you end up licensing it to a company, you might license it for pennies on the dollar. If you had a prototype and moved it further along, that would be much more important. Similarly, as you're hearing this morning related to information technology and bioinformatics, again, if we had much more discussion between between schools, it would be more important. I'm proud at the University of Miami, we have a great new dean, Jim Teen, who happens to be here today, and in our medical school, our engineering school, our architectural school, even our school of music, our school of business, we're beginning to talk to one another. Not that we weren't doing it previously, but we're doing it in a much more augmented way. So my wish would be that we all begin to talk to one another more, and as a result of that, begin to share resources in order to advance technologies.
Yes, sir. Do we have the mic? Go ahead.
I win. So,
There we go.
although I may not look that old, I actually have had 40 years of healthcare experience. It started in high school. And the last speaker reminded me, when I was in a small hospital up in Vermont growing up, there was a system called the PROMIS system. It was to develop electronic medical records. Had a big grant and so on. What I want to know is, why is it taking, 40 years to get to your system? And what's the holdup in developing a medical electronic record?
I think for me to try and summarize what are the obstacles for the healthcare industry not to have adopted a system that to you and to me, I think it seems not only irrational, but it would be probably a crime not to have it already. I think it's probably inexplainable. At the same time, I think we need to recognize the fact that the information exchange is as trivial as it may be, there are a number of components that need to be implemented before you can actually have this. And that's why I think this is still at the research stage. So we are talking about two different things. One is the what can be implemented, and nowadays you go to every doctor's office, you see that they have their data system and all, but as Noel pointed out, some of these are actually, we're going from data to paper and then paper to data again. So I think that the challenge is to be able to have a system that caters to what the healthcare industry needs, and probably the biggest obstacle is that the IT and the healthcare industry have not really sat around the table to figure out what is needed to be able to accomplish that. Otherwise, I don't think that technologically there is a challenge from the point of view of the hardware. The question is how the software can cater to the needs of the industry, and that's where I see the biggest challenge.
I would have to add to that, that historically, you would see that in our country and the rest of the world for that matter, there's always been a huge regulatory and political component associated with health care. And some people say that the futurists in the United States say, well, you know, what is going to influence our future and what has influenced our, the past 30 years? And some people would pin it on attorneys and politicians, but the influences of what has happened in Japan and then the healthcare systems in Europe, that so many players in the kitchen, I believe, have slowed things down.
Actually, let me just add one more thing. I think you brought up a very good point. In other industries, the information is also important. For example, with the collapse of the bridge in Minnesota, many of the people in the bridge industry looked at the same thing and said, why don't we try to have the same way that we have collected data